Good afternoon and welcome to Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21, and streaming on Facebook Live. The things people say to you, 2 seconds before you go on camera. Well done. I thought we'd lose you. It's a nice day for a bike ride. I'm actually surprised you're in here.
It's a great day. Well, all days are, but when you're when it's below freezing and you're having to wear all the clothing that you can put on, it's not quite as much fun.
Dr. David Jetmore, Public Health Officer, Wayne County Health Department. Dr. Thomas Huth, Vice President of Medical Affairs at Reed Health. Gentlemen, once again, thank you all for being here, for taking the time and joining us, providing information, answers to people's questions, and updates on what's going on. Let's kind of jump right into this. This has not been another good week. Talk to us.
Well, of course, things are still super busy. It's kind of like, we're replaying last week, except on a little bit faster speed. But there are a couple of maybe bright spots on the horizon, things that are exciting that are going on, and we think we're getting really close to being able to start vaccinating at least the first targeted groups in phase 1A of the vaccine deployment. I'm super excited today about a really minor thing that nobody else cares about, which is we got our deep freezer finally after several delays.
You mentioned that last week. You thought it was being put in, all the wiring being done.
Yeah, we were supposed to have it last Friday, but then it got delayed from the manufacturer. Then it was supposed to come Monday and then Wednesday, and there were delays, mistakes that the shipper made. They thought it was on a truck, but it wasn't, and then they weren't sure when they were going to get it to us. I kept saying, I'm a little bit worried that with as much demand as there is now for the ultra-low temperature freezers, because virtually every hospital is trying to get one, we might, if we don't get it in our grasp pretty soon, it might get snaffled away by somebody. But it got delivered today. I physically saw it, at least in a photo, and it's being installed. Requires a little bit of extra special wiring, but we'll be ready at any moment to take our initial allocation of vaccine. And we're being told that we might be able to expect as much as twice as what we thought originally, which would be very good news, because then we'll be able to get a lot of people encompassed in what's being called the phase 1A deployment, which is intended to vaccinate healthcare workers who work in frontline sort of COVID-facing positions like containment units, emergency departments, testing centers, but also staff working in long-term care facilities. And I think it's the long-term care facility staff who are really almost the most important in this, because their residents are the most vulnerable to the severe effects of COVID. They really, truly bear the burden of severe disease to a large extent, and we have learned previously that it's not enough to vaccinate residents. Just to take the example of influenza, until you get the staff in long-term care facilities to accept, for instance, the influenza vaccine, it becomes very hard to suppress or avoid outbreaks of influenza, even if you can get all the residents immunized. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that older folks who are immune compromised just don't have as robust an immune response to the vaccines as younger folks do, and then it takes the staff to bring it in. And so I think it's very smart for the state to identify immunizing staff as really the way to protect the residents, and so that's what we're going to really concentrate on.
This is what you're expecting is a 2-shot vaccine, so
That's right.
You're going to get double what you thought. Does that mean in your mind you've got enough to give people their 2 doses, or can you do
not. We
double?
We were expected to deploy all the vaccine in the first shots to as deep into the pool as we can go, so with as much as we think we're going to get, we'll be able to go get first responders. We'll be able to go get some people that were not, they're not the long-term care facility staff, and they're not necessarily hospital staff and emergency departments, but still on that list are school nurses, There are EMS, fire, and other first responders. And so
Do
I
those
think
two
if-
doses, Tom, differ from each other?
Say that again.
Huh?
Which question?
The two doses that you get for COVID, are they exactly the same?
As far as I know.
Okay.
That's a good question.
It just
I don't
occurred to me
exactly
as you were
know.
talking about.
The only thing I know about it is that we cannot mix and match the products, you know, so I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting the Pfizer product. And so if you get vaccinated, which I hope you will with me on day one, because I qualify and you do too, working in public health, if you get the Pfizer shot, the first one, that's the one you've got to take for the second shot. You can't mix and match. But we were told that the Moderna vaccine may come shortly after the Pfizer comes, and that would be an additional 2,000 doses beyond the 3,900 that we think we might get of the Pfizer. So you know, that adds to the logistical complexities of this. You know, how to make sure that when somebody comes back for their second shot, we get the right product to them, because you have to have the Pfizer on the second time around. But to your question, Eric, no, we are to do first shots as deep as we can go with that, and then we'll get another distribution at the right time to follow up with everybody for their second shot in about 3 weeks.
Okay. Before we get back around to some additional questions, and we're taking your questions, by the way. You can send us a question on our Facebook page, or you can send us a tweet to @WCTV Info. Let's turn to Dr. Jetmore, who always has a lot of information, but really good information after a health board meeting, and you all met at noon yesterday.
That's right, and it was a good and very productive health board meeting. We had via Zoom most of the school commissioners for county schools, and I was, first of all, let me say that these educators for our children have done a fantastic job, and it's evidenced by the fact that there's been little or no spread within the school. The children are wearing masks. Remember that was predicted in the spring that none of these kids would wear masks. They're wearing masks. They're socially distancing, and they're learning. The teachers are teaching them. All of the problems we've had with the school is when children have brought in COVID from the outside, and their classmates have had to isolate for 14 days as a close contact. Mm-hmm. But the schools, the superintendents and the teachers want to continue, and I think that is the best place for these kids to be. I mean, out in our positivity rate right now in Wayne County is 9.1%. That's up from 7.5% last week. So I think it's better for the kids to be in school and learning with masks on their face than out running around with their friends doing whatever, often without masks. And then, it's just better for children to be taught in face-to-face contact by a teacher, especially younger kids. Some of these children are dependent on school lunches for nutrition. Some of the less fortunate children may not have access to the internet. They may not have a computer. And then many of them have working mothers who, if they have to stay home with a computer, are going to miss work. It's going to be a financial hardship for the family. I told you this earlier, Eric. I was watching TV last night, and Bill Gates was on, and the question was posed to him, do you think they should have shut the schools down in New York City, which they did with a positivity rate of 3%. That was the triggering thing. Who knows where they got that number? And Bill Gates says, unfortunately, yes, I do. And I thought, wow. Because I have a lot of respect for Bill Gates, smallpox, malaria, the whole public health deal. But then Fauci came on, my hero, and the same question was posed to him, and Fauci said, absolutely not, they should not be closed. That's the last place you should close. And I agree, so I felt vindicated. Of interest is the fact that at that same meeting, Eric, we had a funeral home director ask us if we would limit the grouping at funeral homes to 25. We're at orange now, and according to the governor, you can have groups of 50. He said, in his experience, 50 is too much. It needs to be 25. So we plan to limit that to 25, and I think he's right. You know, the very nature of mourning, you're up close to people, you're often not wearing a mask, you know these people, and now we're seeing funerals of people who died from COVID. So, and with every time you see 100 people each day, a little over 9 of them have COVID. So those were the high points of the Board of Health meeting yesterday. COVID continues to rage in the United States and in Indiana and in this county. So it's so important now. During that same interview with Fauci, he called up this metaphor, which was such a good metaphor. I wish I had thought of it, had authored it. But he said, you know, we've got the vaccine coming. It's like the cavalry. You can hear the gallops and you can hear the trumpets, but you don't stop shooting. You don't lay down your weapon. You wait for the cavalry to come, and then you keep on shooting. Meaning, even though we have a vaccine that's in sight, and that is exciting news, these fantastic vaccines, there'll be more to come, high efficacy. It's so important that we not lay down our weapons, which is, in this case, our masks. We need to keep masked up and socially distanced to protect ourselves till the cavalry actually gets here. I mean, we can hear the hoofbeats and the trumpets, but it's not quite here yet. I have to finish by saying something about Thanksgiving, which is coming up. And Thanksgiving, Eric, is my favorite holiday of all time because you show up, you eat, and then you leave. There's no preparation and there's no cleanup other than washing the dishes. So it cannot be beat for a holiday. But it kills me to say this because I'm going to do this myself. That we need to have Thanksgiving with people that live in our household. I would always go with my brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews to my mother's house, who is 97. And the most important thing is that we keep our mother from getting COVID. And then the same thing's going to be true of Christmas, which kills me. I'm going to have, normally have all my kids and grandkids and hangers-on and significant others come to my house for 2 or 3 days. And we're not going to have it this year. My wife wrote the collective email today, so I think it's going to be tough. It's a sacrifice, but I think we all need to make this because the cavalry isn't here yet. Maybe we'll have Christmas in November this summer.
There you go. As somebody who likes Westerns, I get the cavalry and drive nuts.
Well, I'm glad you like that metaphor.
I like that. That was good. You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're speaking with Dr. Thomas Huth, Reed Health, Dr. David Jetmore, Wayne County Health Department. A couple of quick things to go through. One, if you want to actually see the Wayne County Health Department meeting that Dr. Jetmore was referencing and you're watching us live, that is immediately following this program on WGTV Channel 11. So at 3 o'clock our time, Wayne County Health Board meeting, you'll be able to see that whether you're watching Channel 11 or whether you're streaming it on WGTV online. Also, next week, the Friday after Thanksgiving, as dedicated as these gentlemen are, and they tried to talk me into actually being here, I had to turn them down. So we are going to record next week's program. If you have a question that you want to try to get in early, please send that to wctv@iue.edu. Do that this weekend because we're probably going to record, I think, Monday. It'll be early in the week so that we can get some things done. So if there's a question that comes to you this weekend, send that question for the doctors to wctv@iue.edu.
Eric, I have to break in and mention this because I'll
Go.
forget about it later. Christine asked me to mention that the testing site for COVID will be open on that Black Friday, reduced hours from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. So if people need that service, they're reduced hours, but they can still come in and get tested for COVID between 10 and 1 at the old Elder Bimmerman site.
Okay. Yeah, and all the information there is correct, except for obviously on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, that is a 10 to 1 time. Everything else, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you are in need of COVID testing, you can get it done there at the Elder Bierman site. Also, you can still get it done in Cambridge City, 138 West Main Street in Cambridge City, and that is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we will try to find out from them what their operation is going to be like next Friday also, and see if we can get that information and have that for you. Mentioned you're thinking you'll get some of the Moderna as well as the Pfizer, and I don't remember off the top of my head truly. Does the Moderna need the same cold storage that the Pfizer does?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Johnson & Johnson is the one that I think doesn't have to be quite as cold. I think its
4 degrees
storage
below.
temperature is 40 below.
4.
4 below.
Yeah.
Centigrade? Is that centigrade?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it can be kept in an ordinary freezer.
Yeah. So that's the one that will be a little bit easier to handle logistically. But that's not quite on the horizon yet. Plus, that's also one shot. It's too bad that that's not the first one available. It would be so much easier to do. But it is what it is. I'm just glad to have something.
Okay. How's the staff at Reed? It's been a busy last.
It certainly has. And we'll get to the statistics later. We'll see that we've been having a super busy week this week again. Everybody's doing very well. I just have to really, shout out to the Reed staff, just incredibly talented and committed professionals who are stepping up, and when the chips are down and really kind of making sure that everybody gets taken care of, and they're doing it with a lot of courage and positivity, but I think eventually you can't do that forever, and so really not too much in the way of signs of fatigue, debilitating fatigue or exhaustion yet, but that will come. So we really need this to turn around, as I've said a million times.
For those who haven't been watching, normally we get to the back half of this show and you pull out the numbers. Why don't we do those? Get those out of the way and let you go through that so people kind of see why I'm asking that question the way that I did.
The first slide is the Wayne County data that Christine shares with me, and I assemble into a view that I circulate around to various thought leaders in and outside of Reed. The last bar on the right is the current week in progress. I have it colored a different color because it's not complete. The data is good through yesterday, but that's still 2 more reporting days left. And really, barring some kind of miracle, this will be the biggest week ever in Wayne County history in the pandemic. I'm not sure where this ends up, probably in the 400+ range of new positive cases this week. The next graphic is something I've shown a lot of times and that I watch very closely, and that's the breakdown of positive cases by age group, because certain age groups are much more prone to severe outcomes, and those are the ones we worry about. And that's the 2 groups at the right, the 70 to 79 and 80 plus. And for the last, really since October the 1st, we have noticed that the cumulative percent positive in those age groups out of all the positives has consistently been around 20%. We've actually dropped 1%, so it's 19% of the cases since October 1st now are in those age groups. And I mean, that's maybe a tiny little glimmer of light, but it still means that on something like 2,300 cases, we have a lot of cases in that age group. And the next graphic is the kind of bakes in some assumptions about the burden of the fatality rates on being on those 2 age groups. And just to reorient you, the leftmost bar is just the number of deaths that there were in Wayne County for all of the pandemic up to October 1st. So basically 7 months worth of disease activity only produced 15 deaths by that time. The middle bar is taking from October 1st the total number of positive cases and factoring in the number, the percentage of those that were above age 70, and knowing what an estimate, a reasonably good, very good estimate of the case fatality rates for those age groups are. We should expect on the cases that we've had since October 1st, 58 people to die, which I'm not happy about. None of us should be happy about. I hope that's an overestimate, but that is in fact actually a minimum. It will go higher, unfortunately, as we have more cases. Where if the new cases stopped today, if the pandemic stopped today, that's what we should expect in total deaths. But the pandemic's not stopping today. We should expect more deaths, unfortunately. I don't know how many. But the rightmost bar is the actual number of deaths in Wayne County since October 1st. That's 39. And so, this is the reason why we're worried about it. There are a lot of people who are not at very high risk. They don't have very many symptoms, and it's hard for them to relate to what the trouble is. But this is the whole problem, why we all have to take responsibility for not allowing ourselves to be the next chain in the transmission to somebody who can ill afford to acquire it. And speaking of acquiring it, the last graphic is the read volumes, and I'm probably going to start moving to a pared down version because there's a lot of data on here, but this is the whole pandemic so far. And the rightmost set of bars, if you can zoom in on that, Ryan, is the current week in progress. We've had an average of 84 cases in isolation, 57 known positives in the hospital every day, or I think it's 67 actually, and then 5 patients on average on ventilators. And we had 7 this morning on ventilators, but the average for this week is 5. So, obviously those numbers are going up. Thankfully, the ventilator case is not to the same degree, but we do have people in the hospital, sick, suffering, and dying. We've had 9 deaths since last Friday in the hospital and from COVID-19, and that's just a real tragedy that we need to figure out how to stop.
Those are the numbers. You have questions, you can put them on our Facebook page, or you can send them to Twitter at WCTV Info. This is Ask the Doctors. We've got Dr. Thomas Huth, Dr. David Jetmore. Let's see what you want to know. What phone number would the health department be calling from to notify us that we might have been exposed to someone who tested positive, so we don't ignore an unknown phone number?
I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know what phone numbers our contact tracers use in order to notify somebody that they've tested positive. Was the questioner asking they know that they've tested positive and they're waiting to be contacted? Because if that's the case, if you've tested positive for COVID, take the initiative and go ahead and call the health department and give them your contact tracing information. I think that would solve the problem there.
I feel like context is, a lot of people don't pick up the phones if they don't know the number.
Yeah.
I certainly do that. And so I think that's a really good question. Okay, is there any way for me to know if somebody's trying to call me about being a contact? How might I know? What I would say is, in addition to what you've said, is that if you've been told by somebody, that they think I'm a contact, I should also take the initiative, call the health department myself, rather than wait for somebody to contact me.
Well, one of the things is the state and the county are getting so overwhelmed with cases, as you can see from Dr. Hughes' chart, that it is often 3, 4, or 5 days till somebody from the state contacts you. Now, initially, the state was going to be well, it's still true. The state will contact you first. If they don't get to you, they'll roll those contacts over to the county health department, and we'll contact those people. But as the state gets overwhelmed, they're dealing with 91 other counties besides Wayne County. More and more of those cases are falling to our health department. And we have a big problem with those. Sometimes we have numbers that don't answer, and maybe for the reason you're saying, they don't know who's calling. We use a number of different phones because we've got, in addition to our health department regular personnel, we've hired 3 people just to do contact tracing. That's all they do. So there's at least 3 phone numbers I'd have to give in order for people to recognize a phone number. I'll talk to Christine and see if there, is a small number of numbers that would people would be able to recognize in their phones, so they wouldn't think it was a telemarketer. But I think the most prudent thing to do is if you feel like you are a contact for someone, or if you've been told that you have COVID from a test, then I would go ahead and notify the local health department. The person that tested you will notify the state.
Next question. My mother is a resident in ECF in Richmond. 2 weeks ago today, that facility had 9 plus COVID residents, and she tested positive on that day. As of yesterday, there were 67 positive residents, 34 positive staff members, with 4 resident deaths. It appears something in their COVID plan is not working. Not only as a daughter, but as a nurse, at what point does or will the state or county health department go in and review and assist the facility's protocols and policies?
Well, normally when we have any kind of an outbreak in a nursing home, the Indiana State Department of Health comes in, and that's happened in the past. So that will happen in this case. They have a task force that comes into any outbreak in a nursing home.
Yeah, they have, I think they call them strike teams.
Strike team.
And they try to get in as quickly as they can. It might be a few days delay. The other thing that they're doing is they're sending, making sure to send National Guard troops to help just provide additional manpower. Because what happens is, when you have a lot of staff positive, they have to be excluded from the building. And so the National Guard is sending help in to help man the place, and typically that's the case. Right, now in the last few weeks, particularly, they've been doing that. But I mean, I think it's a very good question, and one of the things they do is they do review policies. They do go around and analyze exactly what is happening, how are people applying the policies, what kind of compliance they're getting, giving them suggestions on how to strengthen their policies. But really, I have said this many times, the real problem is less about policies and so forth. And if people aren't following the policies, that's one thing that can be addressed directly. But the real problem is that people who are amongst the staff who are maybe less knowledgeable, or they perceive themselves personally to be at less risk, they kind of leave their COVID precautions at the door when they leave the facility. And so they go out to the community and don't really protect themselves like they should. And they acquire the virus, very often asymptomatically, and bring it in. And all workplaces are prone to staff, when they're in break areas and sort of behind the scenes areas, also letting their precautions lapse. And then they spread it to other staff that way. And then eventually it makes its way to residents because somebody has a momentary lapse of precautions with the residents. That's the typical pattern. I have seen this many times in local outbreaks. The state is completely aware of this and has mentioned it a number of times on meetings that I've been in with Dr. Weaver and others from the State Department of Health. And really, it's a matter of educating people. And I referred a little bit ago to, don't become a link in the chain of transmission. You know, the way to break that, to break the chain, is take precautions in all facets of my life so that I don't become a part of the chain that lets it get to somebody who can't afford to get it. But that's a super difficult struggle with long-term care facilities. It's virtually the same story throughout the state. I think that at this point there are only, I think I heard a week or two ago that there are only a small handful of long-term care facilities that have not had significant outbreaks in the whole state. And so it's a super common problem.
Talk about the lag time that you all are looking at as you're dealing with numbers, as people go, how much longer is this going to go? How much longer is this going to go? Obviously, some of that depends on what we do in the next couple of weeks, but as you've looked at the numbers over the past couple of weeks, if we all decided to wear a mask today, we've still got it out there, a number of people sick. How long before we start to see those numbers come down?
If you could stop all transmission today, so nobody else could spread it to somebody else, you would still have at least a couple of weeks that new cases would be popping up, symptomatic cases and positivity, just simply because of the incubation period of the virus can last that long. The median, the most common day after exposure that people who are going to be positive start to have symptoms is 5 days, but it's anywhere from 2 to 14 typically. So we would not expect to see a dramatic reduction in cases until about 2 to 3 weeks out if we could stop all transmission today.
You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21, streaming on Facebook Live. We're taking your questions for the doctors on our Facebook page as well as on Twitter. Next question. If a person who lives in a different county dies at Reed as a result of COVID, what does that death count for Wayne? Does that death count for Wayne County or the county of residence?
It does not. It does not Wayne County. It goes to the county of residence.
Okay.
Correct, Dr. Jetmore?
Yes.
Is there a legitimate medical exemption card for people saying they can't wear a mask? It puts staff in a compromising position when our business requires masks. Dr. Jetmore.
There is no legitimate medical exemption card for people saying they can't wear a mask. If you are truly one of those unfortunate people that cannot wear a mask, then you're, for the good of the rest of society, you're going to have to stay home. You're going to have to, because you can't wear a mask, that doesn't mean that it's okay for you to go ahead and infect other people. So I don't know. There may be some psychological reasons for not wearing a mask. People might feel claustrophobic or feel like they can't get enough air. But I am not aware of any medical reason why someone could not wear a mask. Are you, Tom?
Not at all. Especially the paper mask, like the medical type mask, they're super thin and light, and there's virtually no reason a person would have a medical reason not to wear it. Heck, we even have pretty good luck having masks on people with chronic lung disease and so forth. They may need their oxygen supplemented, which they do anyway. But I guess I can't say it can't be possible. I just can't think of what they are. It's a super rare thing from a medical standpoint, and it's ordinarily more of a I guess you would call it a psychological reason. I don't like things on my face, or it makes me feel weird, or I've heard people say that the masks give them headaches, and I don't know. I guess all these things are
Even if
true
there were
experiences, but that doesn't mean that they really have a contraindication to using them.
Even if there were a legitimate reason for somebody to not wear a mask, they still couldn't use that. They couldn't mingle within 6 feet of other people
Right.
without that mask on because of the endangerment of others. So,
I hear this as I hear it commonly. I hear it frequently. Oh, I can't wear a mask. I can't do this. I can't do that. Reed employs over 3,500 people. There is not one person on Reed's staff who truly has an exemptable reason for not wearing a mask. Now we have more people who can't take the flu shot for certain reasons, and I'm not aware of anybody amongst all those 3,900 who truly cannot wear a mask.
Okay. Next question. It seems that for many in our community, COVID-19 is just a virus and its impact need not be of concern. Can you share some of the health concerns that patients have experienced during and after having had COVID-19?
Gosh, it's so variable, and I think that's part of the sneakiness of this virus, that so many people seem to have few or no symptoms. And that's symptoms. That doesn't mean there are no effects. But that's the sneakiness of this virus, that there are so many people who have such minimal symptoms that they're essentially a reservoir for the virus to get to people who the virus can really attack. But that doesn't mean there are no problems. We have concerns about whether people can have long-term effects in terms of potential heart damage, lung damage, kidney damage. Some people think that people who have COVID-19 may be more likely to have certain brain problems. There's just so much we don't know. Maybe these other issues are rare and unusual, but how do you know you're not going to be one of those people who has it? So the best thing to do is to take precautions and realize that even if you have minor symptoms or no symptoms, there could still be long-term effects that we don't understand.
Tom, we may not find out these long-term effects on people until years from now. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that comes to mind is when I was an intern at Dartmouth, this would have been a gazillion years ago, 1970 to 71, there was a ward that was just people with Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. And the majority of those people who had developed Parkinson's disease had been in a coma from the flu in 1918.
Is that right?
Now, no one could have predicted that was going to happen within a few years of that pandemic. And I'm not suggesting that anything like that is going to happen with this, but it may be years or even decades until we find things that have been caused by this particular virus.
But in terms of symptoms, when people have symptomatic COVID, the most common thing is, cough, body aches, maybe low-grade temperature, fatigue. Those are probably the most common things. Disturbances of taste and smell are always listed as the specific symptoms that are most commonly attributed or associated. But I think that's probably actually only about 30% of cases have the olfactory disturbance, and and there's some discussion about what exactly is that from. Is that something to do with just a problem in the nose with the nerve endings, or is it more central in the olfactory nerve tract? I think we just don't know at this point. But the more severe level of symptoms tend to happen in the second week of illness. That's the most common time, after about day 7 of symptoms. That's when people start getting the more severe shortness of breath, and the hospitalization rates go way up at that point. And in a certain small proportion, but significant, are the ones who progress to needing ICU care, being on ventilators and so forth. And when people get to that point, that they're so sick that they're on a ventilator, they tend to have very, very long courses. It could be weeks in the hospital. Some people are so unfortunate as that they wind up not being able to get off the ventilator and have to have tracheostomies. We've had a few cases like that. And, yes, they tend to be the people at the highest risk, the older folks, people with underlying conditions. But, those underlying conditions can include people in their 30s who have a high BMI, or they're diabetic, or they have other chronic diseases. You know, you just it's hard to predict up front who's going to have what effect. So you don't want to be in that group, obviously, and it's just a minority of people that have that severe of disease. But it's a real thing, and we've got a number of people like that in the hospital right now.
Asked you this a couple of weeks ago. Is there an update on what Reed's visitor policy is? Has that changed as the numbers have climbed?
Yes, we've implemented this week, I guess, I think it was on Thursday, a new, more restricted visitor policy where we're doing more stringent door screening and only allowing people to come within the envelope who have, true medical needs to be in the building. And then if patients are in the hospital, most patients are limited to one visitor per patient per day. So, and that's true whether it's a COVID patient or not. And most of the COVID visitations are being done via telehealth means if possible. But if they're the more severe patients, then we're actually gowning people up in PPE, full PPE, PAPRs, and everything like that, and actually taking them in. We feel that it's very important that people who are that sick really need to have family close by. So that's a place where we're actually going extra to make sure that there's physical visitation on some level if somebody can do it and wants to do it. But still, the number of people who are able to do that is the limiting factor. Most visitors are limited to, as I said, one per patient per day. So you have to, if you have a family member in the hospital, you can't just bop in and visit. Your family have to coordinate, okay, who's going to go visit mom today? That's the one visitor. And so we're trying to stick to that. It's just a matter of being careful to not let, reduce the odds that somebody's going to come within the envelope to be carrying the virus and spread it around. So that's the main thing. There are a couple of other situations we're allowing more. If they're in labor and delivery, then we're allowing basically two, maybe the husband or a mother to come in for the labor. So there are some little carve-outs for special situations. The key thing is one patient per visitor per day. And that started on Thursday. And really everybody's being very good about it. And we're doing more, we have police officers doing the check-ins to make sure that people can and really should be there and try to, keep others from potentially skirting the mechanisms we've got in place.
You're watching Ask the Doctors on WGTV Channel 11, CTV Channel 21, streaming on Facebook Live. Program also available on TV3 in Connorsville. More of your questions. What's next? I have heard that a local nursing home still insists a COVID-positive employee continue to work with their COVID residents. Does that make sense?
It actually is in the pandemic emergency staffing plan that the CDC recommends that if you have active COVID patients in what they call red zone in a nursing home, that and an employee, a staff member, is COVID positive, that staff member can't go work with non-COVID patients, but if they're feeling well, they're basically asymptomatic, they can come in and work with the COVID positive patients. And again, it's because, it's an accommodation that kind of needs to be made, because if you have an outbreak in a nursing facility, typically a lot of staff are involved, as well as residents, and typically more staff than residents often. And you can't just send everybody home. You got to have people there to take care of the patients. And so that's one sort of emergency staffing plan that is endorsed by CDC and the State Department of Health.
Were either of you surprised that the CDC said yesterday, don't travel for Thanksgiving? I wasn't surprised by it. It's not the traveling, it's the fact that what you're going to do when you get there at the end of your journey. So much of the spread is based on family gathering together. In fact, somebody, and I don't have that graph with me, somebody in our local health department graphed the pods of people that had the same address, and you can see those groupings of people going up. But on your way to Thanksgiving, you're going to gather with maybe 20 or 30 family members. You're going to sit around a table for a couple hours with a mask off and talk. And the positivity rate is so high that there's a very good chance that everybody there is going to be exposed to COVID. So I wasn't surprised to have the CDC recommend that.
And then in addition to that, if you're traveling by car, number of hours away, you're going to stop somewhere on the way for a break, and a lot of other people are going to be too. And so that's these travel hubs. They're very worried about those being centers of dispersing virus in a way that it will be hard to detect and manage. And we've already referred to the fact that it's very, very difficult, practically impossible for the local health departments and the state Department of Health to keep up with all the contact tracing and getting to the contacts, quickly enough to make a difference. I mean, it's not uncommon for them to be pretty far through the period that you would have wanted to quarantine before they even get contacted and know that they should be quarantining. So, the odds are pretty high that people who really should be quarantined are going to be getting on airplanes and traveling many hours away by car and stopping at some of these transport hubs like travel centers and restaurants and so forth along the highway. And now that I know that, and I think I agree it's a big problem, I am definitely not traveling over the holiday. And we're staying home, and that's just the way it is. And we're going to have a couple of the kids come in who are already isolating themselves in anticipation. But that's it. No big crowd coming in, and we're not going anywhere. So I think that's all the CDC is trying to get people to recognize is the risks of traveling to themselves.
Next question. Are doctors' offices required to wear masks as providers?
Yes.
I think that falls under, anybody in a public building serving the public has been mandated by the governor to wear a mask, so I would say yes.
They certainly should be. And, in fact, CDC recommends that in communities with high transmission rates, not only should people providing direct care to even non-COVID patients should all be masked, as well as the patient should be, but the caregivers should also be wearing eye protection. Whether that's a full face shield is preferred, actually, but at least eyeglasses with side shields. Standard eyeglasses are not adequate, but the short answer is yes, they should be, and if they're not, that's a lapse on somebody's part.
Let's keep going. Is there a Is there a correlation with COVID and strokes and PEs?
Answer is yes. We think there is a known phenomenon in severe COVID patients of a sort of what we call hypercoagulability, and so they can get the impact of that in terms of like mini strokes or pulmonary embolism and such like, heart attack, or that's not all super common, but it does happen. It has fueled some research into, well, should we be anticoagulating everybody because this hypercoagulability is a known thing? But the studies where they've sort of proactively anticoagulated severe COVID patients have not really shown improvement. So really the standard recommendation is just to take the normal baseline prophylactic low-dose anticoagulant strategy that we do with most adult patients in the hospital anyway, and not do anything more unless they actually have active signs of a coagulation effect. Then maybe fully anticoagulate them. So I've kind of answered that in a long-winded way, but there is a connection, but I think we don't understand it entirely because these strategies to proactively anticoagulate have not helped.
Let's keep going. We can get a couple more in before we have to call this week's show. When someone tests positive for COVID-19, if their symptoms aren't severe, they are sent home to recuperate. Are there any suggested over-the-counter medicines, vitamins, herbs that could be helpful?
Well, the answer is if their symptoms aren't severe, meaning that they don't need ancillary care that they could only find in a hospital, then yes, they're sent home to isolate for 10 days and recuperate. There are a few things that are shown to help treat COVID, and those are things like steroids for somebody that's very sick and on a ventilator, remdesivir, and of course monoclonal antibodies, which recently were made possible by Eli Lilly. But if the person's having minimal symptoms, I think they would be fine to just isolate at home. If they had any worsening of their symptoms, especially anything related to respiration, more difficulty breathing or uncontrollable coughs, then they should get a hold of their family doctor to be reevaluated. But most people will recover uneventfully at home over that time period.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if the idea is okay, I can sit at home, but isn't there something I can do kind of actively to help, protect myself? And the short answer is we don't know. I heard Dr. Fauci say that he prophylactically takes multivitamin, including that includes specifically vitamin D, and that's based on some associational studies that people with severe COVID tend to have lower vitamin D levels. However, that doesn't mean necessarily that taking vitamin D is going to prevent or treat anything. But I heard Dr. Fauci say, hey, it's easy to do, it's not expensive, and it's low risk. So that's what he does himself. I've heard also people talk about zinc and vitamin B and vitamin C. I don't know if any of that works, but there's probably no harm to any of it, except for the rare person, like kidney disease patients who have to be careful about those supplements. You mentioned monoclonal antibodies, Dr. Jetmore. I want to make sure we got in today, Eric, to talk about the fact that we started our monoclonal antibody clinic, treated the first patient, one yesterday and then two today. And just as a refresher, that is the drug that recently approved for emergency use, Lilly's drug. I'm getting used to saying the name. It's banletimab.
You're still not fluent.
I'm not. It's I'm getting there. It's like learning a foreign language. But we got some doses last week, 50 doses, and we set up over the weekend, worked really hard to set up a plan. We implemented the scheduling on Wednesday. First patient treated yesterday, three treated today, and then some more scheduled. We're doing it 7 days a week. Hope to expand that. And basically, its place is to take people who are not sick enough to be in the hospital, but they're in a high-risk group. And we're particularly focusing on anybody over age 65 who has COVID-19, and anybody even younger if they have a BMI over 35. That's pretty heavy, BMI of 35. Clinically obese is over 30, so 35 is up there.
Do they have to meet that criteria, 35?
That's who we're concentrating on,
All
and
right.
we'll consider other people if a doctor says, oh, I think this person really should get it, we'll look at that. But we've only got 50 doses. We did get 20 more today, so we've got 70. But no idea when we're going to get more. So
Is this a one-time treatment?
it's a one-time treatment. It's an hour infusion. The point is that it appears in the phase 3 studies to reduce the risk for hospitalization by 70% in the highest risk groups, and the most risk reduction occurred in those over age 65 and those with a BMI of 35 or greater. So that's why we're concentrating on that, and we're going to try to expand that. Very excited about that. But I think between that type of strategy and vaccination, those two things have the greatest possibility in the short run of making a huge difference on our experience with COVID in this community. So we want to get those. If people are out there, fit those categories. Talk to your doctor. You need to be treated within 10 days of symptom onset, but we want to do that and hopefully help people not get sick. Very importantly, but also help take some pressure off the hospital admissions.
Yeah, and as an addendum to the earlier comments on things you can do to help COVID, like vitamin B, C, D, there's not been any scientific evidence that any of this works. But they're cheap medications. They won't hurt anything. But I don't take any of them. I'm taking the other approach.
We've got under 3 minutes left to go. Heading into another weekend, we're going to kind of divide that time. So need to give you 30 seconds. What does the health department need us to know as we're heading into this weekend?
The pandemic is still upon us. The cavalry's on its way in the form of 2 very good, efficacious vaccines. Don't let your guard down before we have the opportunity to vaccinate you. It's important to not only socially distance, but to wear a mask. Hand hygiene's important. Avoid large gatherings, and with the holidays coming up, even if it kills you this one year, just celebrate these holidays with just the members in your own personal household.
What does Reed need us to know? 30 seconds.
Hard to do better than that. I guess I would just say, think of this as, this is your opportunity to kind of break the chain of transmission, even if you don't perceive that you're at high risk. Think about other people that you may come into contact with, and protect yourself so you can protect other people.
Dr. Thomas Huth, Vice President, Medical Affairs, Reed Health. Dr. David Jetmore, Wayne County Health Officer. Gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for joining us. I would say we'll see you next Friday. We'll see you before that, and the show will air on Friday. We are not going to be live next Friday. I do want to reiterate that point. But if you have a question for the doctors, if we didn't get to your question, we've got it, and we will do that in our recording next week. But if you come up with a question this weekend that you want the doctors to answer, send that information to us at WCTV at iue.edu. We'll be happy to try to get them to answer that. Also, COVID testing is available in the community Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Old Elder Beerman Site, 601 East Main Street. Also in Cambridge City at 138 West Main Street in Cambridge City. In Richmond, that's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. In Cambridge City, that's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you're planning ahead, don't forget that next Friday, they will be doing testing at the Elder Beerman site, but only limited hours. That'll be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thank you for watching this episode of Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21. You can see this program in replays throughout the week on our Facebook page, as well as on WGTV online. Thanks for watching. As always, I wish you well. Have a good weekend.